The 2022-23 Boston Bruins are on a historic pace. At time of upload, their record is 49 wins, 8 losses, and 5 overtime or shootout losses, which puts them on a pace to go 65, 11, and 6. To put that in perspective, the NHL's record for most wins in a season is 62, which has been achieved twice, once by the Detroit Red Wings in 1996 and once by the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2019. But what's also very interesting about this team is that they are currently riding, at time of upload, a 10-game winning streak and have only got stronger since buying more firepower at the NHL's trade deadline. Before their 10-game winning streak, they had 39 wins in 52 games. They were on pace to match the NHL's record of 62, but now with a 10-game winning streak, they are on pace to go 65, 11, and 6, which would be 136 points. I mentioned points because the 2022-23 Bruins are already making history as the fastest team in NHL history to reach 100 points, doing so in 61 games, one game less than the team that is widely regarded as the best team in NHL history, the 1976-77 Montreal Canadiens. In 1976-77, the Montreal Canadiens went 60-8-12 for 132 points. They then went 12-2 in the postseason to win back-to-back Stanley Cups and what would end up being their second of 4 in a row. Many are drawing comparisons between the 77 Canadiens and the 23 Bruins, pulling up the numbers right here, as there are many things that are very similar. In terms of goals for per game, the Canadiens were a more offensive squad, as they averaged more than 1 goal extra per game than the Bruins have at 4.84 versus 3.82. But in goals against per game, the two teams are almost identical at 2.14 and 2.13 for the Canadiens and Bruins respectively. The Bruins just 0.01 goals against per game less. In terms of record, we saw that pace, as we mentioned, 65, 11, and 6 is the Bruins' pace at the moment, which would give them 136 points, beating out the Canadiens' 132. However, overtime and shootout losses were not a part of the NHL yet until the 1980s, so if we can assume that the Canadiens would win at least half of their ties, 6 out of 12, that would have given them a record of 66, 8, and 6, and given them 138 points, thus allowing them to have hit 100 points sooner than the Bruins did this year in 61 games. But I digress. In terms of power play, almost identical as well, although the Canadiens were further above the league average than the Bruins. In terms of penalty kill, once again, also very close, but the Bruins, despite the lower penalty kill percentage, is higher above the league average. In terms of personnel, the 77 Canadiens had 5 25-plus goal scorers, 2 100-plus point scorers, 5 point-per-game players who played at least 50 games played, and 9 eventual Hall of Famers. The Bruins are on pace to have 4 25-plus goal scorers, 1 100-plus point scorer in David Pastrnak, 2 point-per-game players with minimum 50 games played, and I would think potentially 3 eventual Hall of Famers. I would think that Patrice Bergeron is a shoo-in, but you could also make an argument for Brad Marchand and or David Pastrnak someday. So what do we do when we have 2 historic teams who will never be able to face each other? Well, let's throw them into a simulation and see what a 7-game series will produce. Now, before we run the simulation, let's check out the squads that both these teams will be putting out on the ice. Some players, thankfully, already in the game thanks to EA creating them for the alumni teams. Some of them did have to be created, such as Guy Lafleur, for example, who thankfully was in NHL 21, so I just brought all those stats over, not a big deal. If you want to follow along and get the story on who that player was, follow the stats on the right. But Guy Lafleur, as you know, one of the stars of Canadiens franchise history, let alone this season. 56 goals and 136 points for him at the age of 25, centered by Jacques Lemaire as the first-line centerman and Steve Shutt, who scored 60 goals in 80 games on the left wing. Just ridiculous stuff. Bob Gainey, Pete Mahovlich, and captain Yvan Cournoyer on that second line. Third line, Mario Tremblay, Doug Risebrough, and Yvan Lambert. Fourth line, Jimmy Roberts, Doug Jarvis, and Régent Hull. For the created players, for guys like Doug Risebrough, for example, it was tough to find a middle ground because, yes, he scored 60 points in 78 games, but it was also a pretty outlier type season for him. It wasn't what he was typically known for. So using the primary source of my father, actually, who was a little younger than me back in 1977, we actually created all these players together, such as Risebrow or Jimmy Roberts or the defenseman you'll see in a moment. So it was a fun project to do together, and he was my primary source. So if you have any issues on the overalls, on the created players, bring it up with him, Nooney and Sung. Now, for the defense, going over to the defense, the top pair, incredible stuff. Larry Robinson at a 93. He scored 85 points in 77 games. Serge Savard on his right at a 92. Second pair, Guy Lapointe, who very underrated, 76 points in 77 games. And Pierre Bouchard on his right at an 83. Two created guys on the third pair. Pretty low overalls, I do have to say. Kind of like 7th D. On such a high-power team, it's not like they had to do too much. But Bill Nyrop and Rick Chartrand at 77 and 76, respectively. Goaltending, Ken Dryden at a 92, backed up by Michel Larocque at a 77. Ken Dryden, I thought this was a fair overall to give him. Some would say that maybe he was carried a little bit, but I think that he was, to have won all those Vezinas, all those cups, and to do what he did. Yes, he faced an average of 26 shots per night, which is lower than, for example, Linus Ullmark, who faces an average of 30 shots per night. It adds up over time. But I think Ken Dryden did his part with a very strong team in front of him. Just a team that, in my father's words, did not do anything wrong. Had so many underrated players as well. Jacques Lemaire, very underrated in his opinion. Many other players that just came together and they never really did anything wrong. Going over the 2022-23 Boston Bruins squad now, they are led by David Pastrnak, who currently has 84 points in 62 games, 44 goals as well, on pace to go well above 100, 94 overall on that first line, with Patrice Bergeron as first-line centerman at an 89, and Brad Marchand at a 92 on the left. Very high-powered first line. Second line, although Taylor Hall is injured at the moment, the game will have Hall, Krejci, and DeBrusk as the second line. Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, and newly acquired Tyler Bertuzzi as an 85 on the third line. Fourth line, Foligno, Frederick, and also newly acquired Garnet Hathaway. Over on defense, we see Hampus Lindholm with Charlie McAvoy, 87 and 90 overall respectively. Brendan Carlo playing with Dmitry Orlov, also a deadline week acquisition, who had an 84 overall, but I bumped him up to an 85. He has just been incredible. He was the NHL's first star of the week. He has just been so good with the Bruins so far. And third pair, Matt Grzelcyk with Connor Clifton. Between the pipes, Linus Ullmark, the current Vezina favorite, who is a 90 overall, backed up by Jeremy Swayman at an 85. So now that both rosters have been covered, we can go ahead and hop into a playoff mode simulation on NHL 23 to see which of these two teams may finally claim that they are the best of all time in the NHL's 100 plus years of history. First period of Game 1 between the 1976-77 Canadiens and the 2022-23 Boston Bruins. 1-0 Canadiens early as the captain, Yvan Cournoyer, opens it up. Of course, who else but Yvan? Shots 13-9 for the Canadiens after 20 minutes, and they lead by 1. Second period, can the Bruins answer? No, the Canadiens add on as Larry Robinson makes it 2-0. Shots are 26-19 for the Canadiens, after 40, out shooting the Bruins by 7, but only up by 2. The Bruins are not done yet. They have a 100-plus point scorer in David Pastrnak. They have some 25-plus goal scorers in Brad Marchand and Jake DeBrusk. Power play Canadiens here in the third period, and Steve Shutt, he scored 60 in the season, and Guy Lafleur makes it 4-0, just adding on now. Shutt had 60 in the season. There's one for his first postseason game here, and Guy Lafleur, the 93 overall, and power play to end it, will just end it there. 4-0 the final as Ken Dryden shuts out the Boston Bruins to open this up. He goes ahead and says, "Do not underrate me." 28 save shutout for Ken Dryden, get first star honors. Robinson and Lafleur had a goal and an assist apiece, and the Canadiens win 4-0 to take a 1-0 series lead over the Bruins. Let's go ahead and continue simulating now, as we will have Game 2 of this 7-game series. The Bruins want to get back in it and not allow themselves to go down 2-0. They want to make it a best of 5. First period action, the Canadiens lead early once again as it's Doug Risebrough, the third line center, scoring the only goal of the period to put the Canadiens up 1-0. 60 points on that season. David Pastrnak finally scores the first goal of the series for the Bruins after Dryden shut them out for 4 periods and 39 seconds. Pastrnak ties it at 1. Second period ends 2-2 as Brad Marchand gave the Bruins their first lead of the series, but then Régent Hule down on that fourth line makes it a 2-2 game. Shots are 22 18 for the Bruins, but we are tied at 2 after 40. Power play Bruins 5-on-3 to start it off, and it's all killed off by the Canadiens at 87 plus penalty kill percentage, and Steve Shutt scores on the power play to give the Canadiens a 3-2 lead, but Brad Marchand gets his second of the night to tie it back at 3. Power play Canadiens 5-on-3. Pete Mahovlich scores even strength after that 5-on-3 expires. The Canadiens are back in the lead with 6 minutes to go, being outshot 32-23. Final 3 minutes of this one, the Canadiens hanging on with 2 third-period goals, and that'll be all she wrote as the Canadiens take a 2-0 series lead. Outshot 34-23 in this one. Brad Marchand scores twice. It looked like the Bruins may have had it, but Pete Mahovlich scoring with 10 minutes to go in the third period, and the Canadiens never looked back. Third star honors in this one goes to Steve Shutt with a goal and an assist. Pete Mahovlich, the game winner, and 5 hits. Brad Marchand, 2 goals and 1 assist. The first star, but cannot get the W for his team. The 1977 Canadiens now lead the 2023 Bruins 2-0 as we would presumably be headed back to Boston now for game number 3. The Bruins got to get back in this, and they need to find their scoring touch, perhaps outside of only their first liners. 2 from Marchand, 1 from Pastrnak. First period action, 2-0 Bruins, and there it is. Charlie Coyle opens up the scoring, and David Pastrnak on the power play makes it 2-0 Bruins, despite the Canadiens outshooting them 11-7. 2-0 Bruins after 20. Second period now, no scoring in that period. The Bruins still outshooting the Canadiens, now 21-17, and they have a 2-goal lead that is quickly cut by Pete Mahovlich, who scores less than a minute into it, and Bob Gainey gets his first of the series to tie it at 2. Power play Bruins, they want to answer back, but the Canadiens kill that off. The Bruins have another power play opportunity, once again killed off by those Canadiens penalty killers. Despite the Bruins having the better penalty kill, the Canadiens have been getting the advantage there, and Rick Chartraw makes it 3-2 late with the final minute, but Nick Foligno ties it up with less than a minute to go, and we're headed to overtime. Rick Chartraw, the 7th D potential third pair D-man, born in Venezuela as well, gets the Canadiens ahead with 3:50 to go, but with 57 seconds left, Nick Foligno scores on Ken Dryden to tie it at 3, and we're headed to overtime. Overtime here in Boston. A goal for the Bruins will get them back in this series, make it 2-1 for the Canadiens, but a goal for Montreal puts them up 3-0 in this series, and the Canadiens are even on the power play to start off overtime. Savard over to Lemaire, and now over to Yvan Cournoyer. Cournoyer to the point. It's Serge Savard. Big save from Linus Ullmark. Just let that tongue roll with these names. Not usually the prettiest hockey, I do have to say, here when you come in-game to watch the CFU play against each other. But it's full simulation, no touch on it. Larry Robinson going through like water. Cournoyer, Lemaire! Big save by Ullmark, and he'll hang on. Doug Risebrown now has it. Risebrown over to Savard, and now here's Mario Tremblay. Tremblay stops up, looks for help. DeBrusque, Carlo, Holland Pony coming up to the Canadiens. That's a trip there. Yeah, that was a bit of a mix-up there of traffic, and looks like there was a trip in there. Steve Shutt getting 2 for tripping with the Jofa going to the penalty box. 2 minutes for tripping. Are they going to show it to us? Are we lucky enough to get that replay? Yeah, let's see it. Steve Shutt. Yeah, there's that poke check. There you go. The Canadiens going to the penalty kill. Bruins going to the power play. Pastrnak to Bergeron. That's broken up by a stick there. Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak can't get the shot off. All 4 Canadiens converging low. And the Bruins will take a penalty to make it 4-on-4 now, as David Pastrnak will get 2 for slashing. Pastrnak, let's see this one. Hard to see, but yeah, he slashed Gainey. I saw Gainey's hand come up. So we'll have 4-on-4 action here with the face-off in Boston territory. Lafleur coming rather gingerly on that right side. Lafleur over to Bouchard, and that just goes wide of the blocker side on Ullmark, who's going across the crease. And that's another penalty for the Canadiens, as the Bruins will now have a 4-on-3 power play. Guy Lapointe getting 2 for tripping. Guy Lapointe, trips Marchand in the corner right there. Yeah, and that'll be a 4-on-3 power play now for the Bruins. Bergeron going 1-on-1. Bergeron keeps, gives it to Marchand. Great move there, but Dryden sticks with it and makes the save. At the point, McAvoy. Marchand again scores! Brad Marchand scores his 3rd of the series, gives the Bruins life, and they live to fight another day. Brad Marchand on the power play from the point, tape to tape. Charlie McAvoy with that X factor gets it over to him. And not much coverage there, unfortunately. It was just him versus Dryden, and Dryden was beat. Definitely a tight game in that one. The Canadiens outshot the Bruins 34-33, but the Bruins came away with that 4-3 victory. Brad Marchand leading the way with 5 points through 3 games. The Canadiens now would love to be on the brink of winning this one and go up 3-1, but the Bruins want to tie it at 2 and make it a best of 3, a huge 4th game here in Boston now between these two teams after an overtime thriller last game. First period, 2-0 Bruins once again. How about that? Taylor Hall and Jake DeBrusk scoring on Ken Dryden. The Canadiens are outshooting the Bruins 13-9, yet down 2-0 after 20. Second period now, 3-0 Bruins. It's Tyler Bertuzzi, one of those deadline acquisitions. Once again, the Canadiens outshooting the Bruins 22-19, but they are down 3-0 headed into the third period. Power play Montreal early in the third. And there's Larry Robinson who scores just as the power play expires. The Canadiens now down by 2 as the Bruins hold on. Mario Tremblay now cuts that lead to 1, and Pete Mahovlich ties it up at 3. Huge third period from a Canadiens team that was getting destroyed the first 2 periods. With 5 minutes to go, the Canadiens are on the power play once again, killed off by the Bruins. Final minute of this one, and we're headed to overtime again. Shots end 37-28 through regulation for the Canadiens, as the Bruins had this all wrapped up through 45 minutes, but they allow 3 goals in 5 minutes in the third period, and for the second consecutive game, we're headed to overtime. Here we are back in overtime at TD Garden. If the Bruins score, they tie this series up at 2, and it's a best of 3. But the Canadiens score, they go up 3-1 and have a chance to end it back at the Montreal Forum. McAvoy, Marchand once again looking to end it, but Dryden makes the save, passes out to Lafleur now. Here is Guy Lafleur. Gets it over to Steve Shutt, the goal scorer. Shutt with the, trying to unload a big slap shot, but Bergeron bumps him before he can let it go. Marchand gets hit by Robinson, crunched against the boards there. Pastrnak going a one-on-one against Larry Robinson. Pastrnak gets the shot on net, rebound, scores! Taylor Hall, and the Canadiens now go down from up 2-0 to the series being tied at 2 as the Bruins win back-to-back games in overtime. Brad Marchand followed by Taylor Hall, and the Bruins have 2 huge showings to get themselves back in this series. Taylor Hall on the doorstep. That juicy rebound that I believe Serge Savard did not clear out fast enough. So the Canadiens almost came back in this one from down 3-0 to tying at 3-3, but in back-to-back nights they lose 4-3 in overtime. Shots were 34-33 last game, this game 37-31 for the Canadiens. So 2 brutal losses. From up 2-0, this series is now tied at 2, and it will be a best of 3 between the 77 Canadiens and 23 Bruins. Let's not stop for a second. We're back at the Montreal Forum for game number 5. First period action, the Canadiens open up as Doug Risebrough gets the Canadiens ahead after 20. Second period action, 3-3 high-scoring affair as Pierre Bouchard makes it 2-0. DeBrusk cuts the lead to 1. Régent Hue reestablishes the 2-goal lead, but then Garnet Hathaway down on that 4th line, and 2 minutes later, David Pastrnak with 26 seconds left ties it at 3. The Bruins are outshooting the Canadiens 27-15, close to doubling their shots through 40 minutes, but this game is tied at 3, and it's anyone's game in this third period. 20 minutes to go, and Pete Mahovlich opens it up to make it 4-3 Montreal. Bruins power play shortly after, killed off by the Canadiens. Power play Montreal now, and Jacques Lemaire on the power play will extend that lead to 2. The Bruins down by 2, but getting a lot of shots on net. Power play Boston late, killed off by the Canadiens. That is a huge kill with the shots being, hold on, Tyler Bertuzzi makes it 5-4, but then Steve Shutt shuts the door, and the Canadiens will take this game 6-4 the final. Tyler Bertuzzi, so close. 4 goals on 35 shots. Shots end 35-25, but the Canadiens get 6 past Linus Allmark. Lemaire with a goal and an assist. Guy Lafleur gets 3 assists on the night. Pierre Bouchard with a goal and an assist. And the game, well, not the game winner, but the game ender, the barrier, going to Steve Shutt, who shuts the door. So the Canadiens now have a chance to end it in Boston. They haven't had any luck yet at TD Garden yet through this series, as they've lost both games in overtime. The Bruins will hope that that will work to their advantage. First period of game 6, and it's 0-0 after 20. Shots 9-8 for the Bruins. 40 minutes left until we potentially see which team can be crowned as the best of all time. Second period now, still no score. Shots are 23-20 for Boston through 40 minutes. Dryden and Allmark both standing on their heads, on pace to save 40-plus shots each. Here, 30 plus shots each. Here we go in the third period, 5 minutes in, still no scoring. One goal may be the winner, and Brandon Carlo gets the first of the night past Ken Dryden. Allmark still making the saves that he has to, but the Canadiens have another 7.5 minutes to make that change. Hold on, David Pastrnak puts the Bruins up by 2. Will that be enough for Boston, as the Canadiens don't have any sign of life late? Allmark puts on the Jets, turns them on, and does what he has to do, as the Bruins have more victory at home and shut out the Canadiens 2-0 in game number 6, outshooting them 31-26. Allmark makes all 26 saves. Dryden allows 2 on 31, so a 29 save night from him, and Brendan Carlo with the game-winning goal. So a huge performance from the Bruins to push this series to 7, and ladies and gentlemen, would you have had it any other way? The 77 Canadiens and the 23 Bruins, Game 7 to decide who will be known as the best team in NHL history. Controllers down, let's let the players do their thing and leave it out on the ice. The first shot of the game comes 5 minutes in, power play Montreal early as well. That's killed off, low shooting affair, but Jimmy Roberts opens up the scoring, and Guy Lafleur comes right back a minute later. It's 2-0 Montreal with 5 minutes to go in the first period. Power play Boston late. They'd love to get some momentum back in their favor if possible, a la Garnet Hathaway a couple games ago, but no. Shots end tied at 7 after 20 minutes. Guy Lafleur and Jimmy Roberts scoring first and fourth line there respectively. Second period after 20, the Canadiens are up 2-0, and the Bruins only 7 shots on net, but Garnet Hathaway, speak of the devil, he opens up scoring for the Bruins, and now that cuts the Canadiens lead to 1, but Steve Shutt reestablishes the 2-goal lead. The 60-goal scorer makes it 3-1 Montreal. Not on a lot of shots here, 4 goals on only about 30 shots, and Jacques Lemaire extends that lead to 3 now. Bad news for the Bruins. They'd love to get one late. That is bad news for the Bruins, as shots are 21-15 through 40 minutes, and the Canadiens are up by 3, getting 4 past Linus Allmark on 21 shots. Third period action now. The Bruins need to score early, but Yvan Cournoyer, the captain, makes it 5-1 Montreal, and Game 7 may be enough to just do away with any of the hesitations that we had. Bruins on the power play late with an extended opportunity, and David Pastrnak does give the Bruins some life with 5 minutes to go, but down by 3 with 5 minutes left, likely not enough. Jacques Lemaire is going to put this one away. Final moments here at the Montreal Forum. 52 seconds left in this one. The Canadiens up 6-2. The biggest blowout of this entire series coming when all the chips were down, and the Canadiens said, we just got to make sure that we come away with this victory to be known as the greatest team of all time. Final seconds in this one. The Canadiens win Game 7 by a score of 6-2 and win this series against the Bruins 4-3. The handshake line here. I'll be curious to see who wins the Conn Smythe in this series, as Jacques Lemaire winning the Conn Smythe with 8 points through 7 games. A very underrated player, very well-deserved Conn Smythe trophy in this series against the 2023 Boston Bruins. Stanley Cup, the captain, Larry Robinson of this team will come and get it, but of course the captain of this 77 squad, Yvan Cournoyer, would be the one to lift it. But Gary will call over Larry to come and get it. Look at that flow. Larry legend, Larry Robinson here to raise Lord Stanley. A very well-deserved series, a well-fought one, as the Canadiens come out on top in front of the home fans, the Montreal Forum, to get this championship over the Bruins. And there's the squad gathering around Lord Stanley. Look at all of these faces. Look at these 9 Hall of Famers among them as well. What a team. So the Montreal Canadiens come out on top in this series. It was really just that 7th game where it was a blowout. All those other games much closer. In the end, the Canadiens had 3.71 goals for and 2.71 against. Those numbers, the inverse for the Bruins, 2.71 for, 3.71 against. Interesting to note that the Canadiens scored 1 goal more per game than the Bruins on average, just like how the real 77 Canadiens scored 1.02 goals more than the Bruins per average on game. So very interesting there to note that. Power play, the Bruins had the advantage 13 to 11.8%. Penalty kill, they also had the advantage 88.2 versus 87%. And interesting to note that every game in this series was won by the home team. Canadians going 4-0 at home, 0-3 on the road. Bruins 3-0 at home, 0-4 on the road. Wrapping it up now by looking at the scoring between these two teams. Through 7 games, David Pastrnak had 5 goals and 8 points on his point per game plus pace. Brad Marchand and Charlie McAvoy were also point per game, pretty much a real reflection of the real world, as McAvoy's not far from there either. Patrice Bergeron, 5 assists, 5 points. Matt Grzelcyk, 4 assists, very nice as well. Taylor Hall, 2 goals, 3 points. Bertuzzi, trade deadline acquisition, 2 goals, 3 points. DeBrusk, 3 points. Frederick, 3 points. Hathaway, deadline acquisition, 2 goals and 2 points. Charlie Coyle, 2 points. Foligno with a goal. Carlo a goal. Krejci only 1 assist, and Orlov only 1 assist. That's probably the most unrealistic part of the entire simulation here, that Orlov and Krejci had 1 point each and combined to be -9. Some rough plus minuses. Lindholm, no points. That's also pretty unrealistic. And then, if you keep scrolling, it creates more copies of people. That's funny. Great stuff here in EA land. Goaltending. Linus Ullmark, his numbers in the end, .879 save percentage and 3.87 goals against average with 1 shutout. That 6 goal against Knight really not helping him out in a small sample size, obviously. For the Montreal Canadiens, through those 7 games, Guy Lafleur, 2 goals, 9 points in the 7 games. Jacques Lemaire winning the Conn Smythe with 8 points in 7 games. Had a game-winning goal, had a better plus-minus, scored 1 more. He gets it over Guy Lafleur. Mahovlich with 7, 4 goals, 6 points from Shutt. Cornway also with 6. Robinson 5. Risebrough, Tremblay, Roberts, Savard, Lapointe, Lambert with 3. Hull with 2, as well as Gainey, Bouchard, Jarvis, Nairop with 2, Chartrand with 1 goal in those 7 games. Ken Dryden between the pipes, 4, 1, and 2 with 1 shutout, .913 save percentage, and 2.82 goals against average. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The 1977 Montreal Canadiens come out on top in a 7-game series, winning 4-3 against the 2023 Boston Bruins. Now I turn the question over to you. What did you think about this simulation? Was it realistic? Which team would you see coming out on top, and in how many games? As well, please do leave a suggestion for any other simulations you'd want to see. Current, historic, anything. I'd love to do it here on the channel. And as well as these simulations, we also do NHL 23 franchise mode, player career simulation, breaking news and analysis in the real world of hockey, and much, much more. So if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'd enjoy much else that goes on the channel. So leave a like if you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to join in on the team. It's a great community here, and it'll be that much better with you as a part of it. The link for our Discord server also in the description. Also very much looking forward to seeing what the real-life Boston Bruins end up doing in 2022-23. Can they hit that 65-win pace? Time will tell. But thank you very much for taking the time to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next one.